Hello, everyone, and welcome to our very first stream for Stranded: Alien Dawn. My name is Tim, I'm your community lead, and joining me...
I'm Jens, I'm your senior community manager.
And today we're here to talk about Stranded: Alien Dawn. So, super exciting.
Yes, very.
Something that, of course, we've been playing a little bit and
a bunch,
debating quite a lot as well in the office. I'm very excited to talk more with everybody about what it is. So, starting there, shall we give a little description of, for those of you at home who may not be too familiar yet,
joining us for the first time.
Exactly. What is Stranded: Alien Dawn?
Stranded: Alien Dawn is a planet survival sim in which you manage a group of survivors who have very recently crash landed on an alien planet and are doing their best to try to eke out an existence, eke out a living existence, and then eventually maybe sending a signal for people to come pick them up and whisk them home.
Very much you want to survive and then thrive.
Yes.
And see where you can go with that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So Stranded: Alien Dawn, we are working with our incredible partners at Haemimont Games. So we've loved working with them so far on this.
Really
we'll continue to as well. It's all looking brilliant. All the conversations we've had with them is just full of excitement and seeing where we can go with this. So before we get into what we'll be doing today, we do have one very vital piece of information to share, isn't that right?
Very exciting announcement, yes, absolutely. You've been asking us quite a lot, and we can finally reveal that Stranded: Alien Dawn will be available in Steam Early Access on PC from October 12th. Not that far to go, actually, from when this goes out.
So yeah, that's super exciting.
It's pretty exciting.
I cannot wait to see how people approach the survivors, they approach the planets, but we can get into all of that in just a moment.
Yes, absolutely.
So today, we're going to take you through the basics of how to play Stranded: Alien Dawn, how the gameplay looks, have a look at the survivors, and just give you a bit of a gameplay run through, really.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty good, I think.
I think we'll just get straight to it.
Let's jump right in.
Let's do it. So, we'll jump right into the gameplay very, very soon.
Yep.
But I thought it would be worth starting exactly where everyone at home is going to start, which is the survivor selection screen.
Yes.
So we have picked a few of our favorites. We've got Connor, Kana, Katina, and Lara here, and they'll be the survivors that we've got today. But as you can see from the grid, we've got
There is a lot to choose from.
There's a lot of
different people to choose
survivors,
from.
and they've all got different skills. They've all got different traits, and what's fantastic is that they've all got different backstories, and all of that combined. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, and we can have a look at a few more of them in detail later as well.
Yes.
But for now, should we get into the game and show everyone exactly how their games will start?
Let's
We'll
jump
start
right
the
in.
same way. Let's go. I love this bit.
It's really good. So as we mentioned in the intro, you are managing a group of
Survivors.
crashed survivors, and you literally start experiencing that crash when you jump into the game for the first time.
Oh, the crash looks so good, but also I feel so bad.
It's really brutal.
It's not fun.
Yeah.
There we go. So you can see they're not having a great time there. So Connor's trying to help Connor calm down.
Yep.
They've just crashed on this new planet. There's debris still falling from the rest of their ship.
Like everything, well, not everything, but a lot of things are on fire.
Can you imagine how scary that would be, that you've just crashed and then
must
a
be
part of
very
your ship
traumatizing, I
is
think.
not even that far away from you, it's just crashed right next to you. I'd be terrified.
But
I think I'd be
say,
Connor.
as they say, any landing you can walk away from is a good landing. So, obviously they're not fine, but they're good enough.
They've survived, and there they can build from.
Yes.
I think if it was us, I'd be the Connor, and you would be the Connor.
I hope so.
You'd be the one who's making sure that I'd be just freaking out a little bit, and then you'd be like, Tim, you need to calm down.
You need to calm down.
We need to sort
Step away
this
from
out.
the fire.
Step away from the fire. Absolutely. So, I think as well, welcome everybody to Sobrius, this incredible planet of...
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful, but also potentially dangerous. Filled with new flora, new fauna, and plenty of things that some are a little bit more familiar, and some that will be... I'm going to take a wild guess and say that should be quite unfamiliar.
I think some of the stuff looks like some things that we have here on Earth, but other things also look very different. Like the purple plants, for example, some of the animals that you have there on the left.
I don't know about you, but when I'm walking around in London, this is not the sort of flora or fauna that I see.
Not really.
No. We've got those red plants there as well, for example. That's completely different from anything that we have.
Yes.
I was going to say back at home. We're still on Earth, but then survivors would have had back at home.
Yeah.
We've also got different, as you mentioned, fauna. So there's some animals with horns there and some interesting sort of flat-headed creatures we saw a minute ago as well.
Definitely.
There's a small group of animals there that are just taking a nap.
Are they friendly? Are they not?
Well,
who
we
knows?
have to
We'll
find out.
at some point, yeah.
Something, all the wonders of Sobrius for your survivors to find out.
It is a vibrant, rich world, lots of resources, lots of different things you can explore, look into, observe, research, and it all starts from that moment when you crash.
Look at those little bugs go.
I didn't notice them before.
Yeah, they're just chilling there on the side. And I think another thing we can take a moment to notice as Mitch, shout out to Mitch, who's currently driving the game for us.
Shout out to Mitch.
You've got this incredible view, and this is actually all area that you can send your survivors to.
All of this is explorable.
These different trees, you can see little bits of crashed ship out there. It looks incredible. I'm actually really loving this view. This is the kind of thing that I want to hike up this mountain so that I can go take a few pictures and maybe just a couple of selfies.
Yeah, minus the crash landing, obviously.
Okay, if you're fussy, sure. Okay, I suppose so.
I'd visit. I just wouldn't want to crash,
You're so particular, Jens. But we could send them out there, and there's a bird flying across there as well. So there's plenty to explore, plenty to find out.
Absolutely, and it's looking incredible. But from these humble beginnings, we start building up a camp. We start building up some sort of life and existence on this.
We can't sit next to the smoking ruins of our crashed pod forever.
No, I mean that would get a bit boring, I think.
So we've had a look at Sobrius as it is, an untouched world with humanity visiting, whether it wants to or not, for the first time. Shall we move forward in time a little bit and see how our survivors have taken on this challenge of Sobrius?
I think we should.
Sounds good. Let's go do that. So here we are, back on Sobrius again, and it looks like our survivors have made a lot of progress.
Definitely, there's a pretty nice base going on. We've got some decent shelter. We've got some farming going. We've got
a
some
roof
fences going
over their heads.
There are roof. There is a roof over their head. There's a fair bit of resources there as well that have been stockpiled. So this is looking pretty good.
They're doing a good job, I think. And they've got defenses ready, they've got some fences built, and they're going about their lives for now.
Fences and defenses.
Fences and defenses,
Yeah.
exactly. They've got that all good and ready to go. So we have just come back to our survivors. Shall we have a look at how they're doing?
Yeah, let's do it. I mean,
So we've got a lot of information. Of course, it's a management game. So we want to give you as much information as possible so you know how to look after them. Because after all, we've got not just have you fed them, but are they warm? Have they been caught out in the rain is another thing potentially. What are they good at? How is their heat and cold tolerance? We're going to look at things like their physical health, their mental health, their equipment. So let's go through this one panel at a time, right?
yeah, let's do it. So first we have the overview panel here in the survivor screen where we can see just a general level of how one of our survivors are doing. Connor here doing pretty good in terms of health. Happiness, fairly low. And you can also see how much rest he's gotten, his relaxation and recreation level. If he's got any weapons equipped, his cold tolerance, his heat tolerance, what he's good at, and then what his opinion is of some of the other survivors that he's working with.
Connor and Katina is just besties out here.
Yes, absolutely. And so this will give you a sort of very quick overview, quick snapshot of how they're doing. And you can also see where their sort of threshold is when it comes to whether or not they're going to have a bit of a breakdown. But we'll get to that.
We all have that threshold. So let's have a look at the second screen there with the heart.
So this is a bit more focused on their mental health.
Physical health.
Yeah, physical health, sorry, and how they're doing. Poor Connor is in a moderate amount of pain right now. There's a part of his backstory that also causes him to unfortunately be in physical pain a fair bit of the time.
Yes, and he's got something unique going on there with some nanites as well, which are boosting his performance at the cost of being in some pain.
Yep.
It is something he suggested. So, we said that's okay, but only for a little bit.
Yeah.
We can't have that long term.
He was also recently in a fight, and so that also has caused him to be in some pain.
A little bit of pain.
Yeah.
I mean, when we fall down, we hurt ourselves. It's going to take a while to recover, especially is he something nasty?
Yeah.
Like bit him a little bit, just a little bit.
But this will then give you the sort of overall physical condition of your survivors. And you can see his moderate pain went from 40% to 38%, so he will slowly recover as he works. But it might maybe be a good idea to send him off to bed and just have him fully rest and recover if
we can do as well. Yep. So let's have a look at the next screen. We've gone from physical health
to mental health.
to mental health.
Yes, which
absolutely.
is unfortunately he is not very happy at the moment, probably because of some of the pain that he's been dealing with. But there are. You will need to contend with both their physical and their mental well-being when you are managing your survivors. And if obviously if you have them work all the time, they will become physically exhausted, but also mentally exhausted. So it's important to give them rest, to give them relaxation, to give them items that they can do various things of recreation with, like activities. It's important to give them a variety in terms of food. And sometimes also just give them time to just, relax and give them certain...
We all need it, right?
Amenities, as it were.
And you can see right here in detail for Connor, this screen will let you know, is there something that Connor has specifically been enjoying? So he had a pleasant walk, he ate at a table, so he was a little bit more civilized. So these things are helping make him happier.
Yep.
But as you mentioned, there's not a lot of fun things to do.
Yep.
He's tired, he's in pain after being bitten by something on the planet.
Yes.
Doesn't have variety in food, is getting tired of eating the same emergency rations every day. So all of these things have an impact on the overall happiness. And if you can supply things like those recreational things and various food options rather than just the one, the happiness will go up and they'll perform better, they'll have less risk of a meltdown. So it's all positives. You can see Mitch getting some veggie soup made there in the kitchen with Connor in mind. Let's have a look at the next screen. So here we're going to be looking at their inventory.
Yes.
So right now, they, of course, all of their clothing is in pretty good condition. You can see the integrity levels is pretty high. This is stuff that you'll be able to change as you go through. You'll be able to craft different pieces of equipment for all of your survivors. So that includes weapons, but it also includes different clothing. And that clothing can just be clothes. It could also be armor. Depends on what are you going to get them to do, what situations do you expect to come up. And
Also
what can
depending
you
on-
make?
Yeah,
What do you
depending
have?
on the resources that you have. So there are many different types of materials that you can sort of pull from the environment. There's stuff that you can take from the crashed, like the landing pod that you came in. There are potentially animals that you can kill and
Make leathers?
butcher. Yeah, make leathers from, or like fur options for clothing as well. So there's plenty of different things that you can use to make clothing and make weapons
Absolutely.
and make things out of.
And all of these, aside from just making sure that everybody's clothed, as you can see, you'll have a change in your stats. So maybe when it gets to winter, we want something a little warmer for them to wear.
Yes,
in the summer,
definitely.
maybe we want to stop wearing our heavy coats, for example.
Good idea to not wear wool in summer unless you want to overheat and sweat.
Good idea. Let's have a look at the next tab, because for all of our survivors, this is an incredibly important one, is their skills.
They all have a different level in different skills, whether that be construction, cooking, crafting, farming, healing, or then also intellect and physical. Connor, as we can see, very physical man.
Not great with the farming, though.
No.
Doesn't have that green thumb. I think I can give you this advice for free. Probably don't have Connor run your farm.
No.
Probably have him defend.
Yeah.
Against. That's why he got bitten. He was defending everyone.
Yes.
So you'll see that they have different levels of ability and all these different skills. And as all of the survivors are unique, they have a completely different mix from each other. And as a result, you'll need to make sure that they're doing completely different tasks. So you can see here who we've got. Kana is fantastic at crafting. So when it comes to making your clothes and making your weapons, you're probably going to have a look at having Kana get involved with that.
Definitely. She
Whereas when it comes to combat, it's just not something that Kana's interested in.
No.
I think Kana will do it, but it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing to get them to do because they're not going to be great at it. Whereas here you can see the interest in construction, so they're going to be pretty keen to take up those tasks as well. So you need to consider all these different parts because you've got, as you can see, construction for building, cooking for making sure everyone's fed, crafting for making things, farming for farming, healing for looking after everyone. So Connor will have needed one of his fellow survivors to help with treating those wounds. It was very important. The intellect stat, important for all of the research and observations we mentioned a little bit earlier. And physical for a lot of that carrying. So we'll not worry about that for now.
Yeah. Speaking of things that will have an impact on their mental health, if there's a sleep parasite causing them not to sleep that well,
It's not going to be too great
definitely
for
going to
them.
have a bit
Absolutely.
of an impact. Yeah, for sure.
Not ideal, but these are just all of the dangers of Cerberus and things that you need to look after and consider as we go through. So, should we take a little look at the controls in the top left?
Yes, let's do that.
So we can look at those very quickly. So as with any management game, you want to have a certain level of control. Sometimes you want to speed time up. Sometimes you want to pause time as well, so you can put out several different kinds of orders or just get a lay of the land. So that's something to consider. And you've also got the seasons in the top corner. So you'll have different challenges.
Yes.
As we mentioned, maybe it's hot, maybe it's cold, maybe your crops will grow, maybe they won't grow. It's all these different things you have to take into consideration.
Yeah, right now it's spring, so the temperature level will be fairly comfortable both during the day and during the night. Your crops will be able to grow fairly reasonably depending on where you plant them, but then obviously as we move into summer, the weather will change. As we move into autumn, the weather will definitely change.
And how are these new plants that you've never seen before going to react? You'll just have to find out.
And then, winter, obviously, it's going to get a lot colder, so you will need to invest in some more warmer clothing, maybe also some heat sources for your base and the places where your survivors sleep. But luckily, still a ways to go until we get to winter at this point.
Yeah, so we can deal with that later.
Yeah.
That's future survivors' problem.
You might also notice, as Mitch is moving the mouse around here, you'll see it says the temperature in the top left corner as well, and how warm or cold it is depending on where he's selecting. So under these roofs, near the fire, it will be around 20 degrees, very comfortable. Outside, 10 degrees, still, somewhat
little
comfortable,
chilly,
a little
yeah.
chilly.
So we've got this wonderful base that the survivors have made. So let's talk about how they've done this.
Yes.
So in order to make their base, as you saw, their humble beginnings were standing next to that crashed ship. But they'll have collected resources like the wood from the trees nearby. They'll have collected scrap metal, and they'll be able to continue building, as you can see Mitch is doing here, and build additional sections. And with this, they're going to stay defended, and they continue expanding their base. So popping in a gate means you can get in and out, and you've got all of these choices. So if we have a look in the defense menu, we can see that there's actually a lot of different materials that it suggests that you might be able to use. You'll have your scrap metal that you've scavenged from your ship. You'll have wood and sticks from the trees. If you found a quarry or anywhere with stone to mine, then you get stone as well. And they'll have different durabilities. But of course, sometimes it's a little harder to get more stone than it is to get more wood when you're surrounded by a forest.
It all depends on where you've crash landed as well, and the resources that you have around you. We're pretty lucky right where we're set up now.
Yeah, we're lucky we crashed, Jens.
I'm thinking in terms of location, obviously, because we've got bits of spaceship that we can pull scrap metal from. We've got this quarry here that we can pull stone from, and of course we've got plenty of trees around us for both wood and these sticks as well. Mainly wood.
There's a lot to work with here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So as you can see, the team are now going ahead, building these fences so they can begin expanding their base in a safe way.
Yes.
You can, of course, just build an expansion, build more shelters, but we've seen Connor got bits. We want to make sure that everybody stays as safe as possible, so we're starting with the fences.
Yes, it's a good idea to have some sort of barrier between the place where you sleep and and everything
and
around
everything
you.
else.
Yes,
I mean that's what we do in real life as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we make sure that we're protected in real life too.
And as you continue to progress, obviously you'll get access to new things that you can build, and we might be able to. We're going to be taking a look at that a little bit later.
Well, as we mentioned, discovering the planets and what's new is incredibly important. So you'll be able to send out your survivors to observe new things in the environment. So, for example, we've got over here, I believe it is called a bloated insect for now because we don't know what it is.
No.
But we can send Kana over to investigate. So Kana will head over and from a safe distance observe. And once they finish observations, we'll make a new discovery.
Yes.
And we'll learn what we've decided to name it. We'll learn, is it something that's typically aggressive or not, for example? There we go. We've recently discovered the horned beasts are now called the Ulfin. And there's a little reason for why. You can get a bit more information because it's a herbivore. And if we click off this panel and click on one of the Ulfin, we'll be able to see, there we go, a little bit more information about them as well. So on the first screen, for example, you can see when you do decide, if you hunt them and you decide to butcher them, you'll be able to get meat and hides from the body. And there's a 3% chance of retaliation. They're usually peaceful, but I think it's really important to point out that's still a chance.
That's 3%
3%
chance.
chance is still a chance.
It's still 3 times out of 100.
In one of my playthroughs, I thought 3% is not very high. Sent Connor to deal with a herd.
Right.
The herd dealt with Connor. I had to send in 2 more survivors to fend off the herd and then help him because he's incapacitated. It was not a good day for Connor.
Oh, it's a bad day for Connor.
I just want to take this opportunity to apologize to Connor. I will do better by you on my future playthroughs.
Yeah.
So you can see Connor's dealing with the herd. Nothing's going to go wrong here.
Dealing with
3% chance. It's probably going to be fine.
It's probably going to be fine. I do feel a bit bad for the Ulfin.
Yeah, me too. But at the same time, you've got survival on this new planet. We need to find all these different sources that we can get.
Very true.
So while Connor is doing that for the survivors, Connor is off doing some observing there as well in the background.
Yep.
And we'll be able to use that later on to make more discoveries, see what else we can do with everything that we find on the planet.
Yes.
So I think while we've got a lot of tasks that we've talked about, there's a lot of things to manage.
There's a lot of things going on right now. Everyone's just carrying out what we've assigned them to carry out, basically.
Yes. But as we also mentioned, while you've got plenty of different tasks to get them to do and things to consider, you also want to consider who's doing what. So if we have a look in the management screens, I think we could probably start with activities.
Let's start with activities. Yeah. So this will basically let you set priorities for the different tasks that you have, and you can base that then on the different skills that they have. So for example, a guy like Connor, as we talked about before, pretty big physical man, maybe not so good at farming, might want to take the farming priority for him down to maybe...
Well, nothing. We've not letting him do it. He's not allowed near the crops.
He's not allowed near the crops. But we will then have him prioritize anything that's more physical. So, for example, hunting, cutting things down, mining, carrying things, delivering things, that sort of thing. Yeah. Whereas someone who's
Stick to your strengths.
Yeah. Whereas someone who would be more higher in intelligence, maybe intelligence but lower in physical skill, could be assigned things like research and observation and things like that.
Absolutely. So you've got a few ways to set those priorities. As you can see, Mitch has gone for the complex priorities here, where you have a system of 1, 2, and 3, 1 being highest priority, 3 being lowest.
Yep.
But if you change over to the simple priorities, you can also choose, and as you saw, it can go up to 5 as well. You can do plenty in there. You can just simply turn these on and off.
Yep.
So I usually like to start by keeping the simple ones. I just decide who's going to be doing what in a very basic way. And then as I progress through my game, I then start flipping over to the complex ones.
Interesting.
Well, that's the way I like to approach it, because then I figure, okay, so in this current situation, I need them to focus on this more or this more. So I'm going to tweak it like that. But it's just different ways to approach it, and you've got control. So you can get as granular as you like here, but you can, and you don't have to. But that's also what's great about it, is you've got the option.
I tend to go straight for complex priorities and just see
no ramp up.
What's everyone's thing and where it is. Like if someone has a 5 in, for example, healing, I will immediately set healing as their top priority.
It's so interesting.
And then go through it that way.
Well, I mean, we already talked about how we play the game so differently to each other, because you take an approach of every survivor, what is their immediate strengths and weaknesses, and then I tend to take a situational approach when I'm playing in what's happening right now. Do we have to have a priority on making cloaks or weapons, for example, so that I'm going to flip that round for crafting? So you can choose however you like to do it.
Yeah.
So there's another side to this. While we've got what tasks people are going to be doing, we've also got when are they going to be doing things. So here we've got a very basic schedule. Everybody will be working from 6 in the morning till 8 at night. Seeing as we've all just crashed, that's reasonable. But you can also set with 4 different parameters. You can give them time to relax, time to work, time to sleep, and time to do anything they like. So when they're on anything, they can truly pick to do whatever they like. They can sleep, they can work, they can relax, they can just go for a walk. That's up to them. But you can also segment this time a lot more efficiently. So you can say, okay, I need you to be working during this time. So let's say we've got Connor and we've made his priority hunting. We don't want him to hunt at night because
it's more difficult to see.
Exactly. So we can make sure that at nighttime he's not set to work and he's set to either sleep or relax. And during, say, the morning, he's heading out to do that hunting for the beginning of the day. Whereas equally, maybe different tasks with research, we want somebody to be sitting there and doing that later in the evening when they could be helping with making food in the day. So, you know, there's different ways you can go about organizing this. As we can see, Mitch has decided that they get to relax from midnight till 4 in the morning. They can do anything from 5 till 8. And then they need to work from 9 till 12. They have staggered lunch breaks.
Ah, interesting.
Interesting. And then they get 3 hours sleep a day. So, I mean, personally...
all sleep all the time.
Personally, I have very little confidence in letting Mitch organize my personal life.
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky life to live, I think.
Yeah. Especially...
I do like this, though.
Relax all the time.
Just all relaxation. Just,
Okay. Maybe Mitch can be in charge of our personal lives now, then.
But yeah, it's essentially the activities and the schedule is a way for you as the player, as you're managing these survivors, to help your survivors prioritize the stack of different orders and different things you need them to do as you progress through the game and as you find more things for them.
And there's always more things.
There's always more things, and you can do it on a fairly granular level. Yeah.
Yes.
And just individually assign them, or you can just say, hey, someone observe this, please. And then depending on
somebody go look at the bug.
And then depending on how you've set up these priorities and these schedules, someone will usually either do it right away, or they will finish their current task and then go, unless they have something else that they need to prioritize.
So we've had a look quite a lot now. We've looked a little bit at the base and expanding it. We've talked quite a bit about what your survivors can do. Shall we go back to that screen from the beginning of the game where we see all of the survivors? Let's look at them in a bit more detail from that perspective. So here we are back at the survivor selection screen that we saw at the very beginning of the game. So I just felt this would be the best place to really show all of the diversity of these survivors, how they're all unique and they've all got these different approaches and skills and traits. So we've got our boy Connor.
Yes.
So we'll start with Connor, the doomed cyborg bodyguard with quite a sad backstory, actually.
It is a bit of a sad backstory.
Yeah.
It gives him some really good skills, but it's also, I mean, you sit there and think, oh no.
There.
Yeah, it's a bit of heartbreak there. Former bodyguard had an eye injury, had to have his eye replaced with a cyber eye, which then gives him the trait Sniper Eye. He's very fast with ranged weapons, but then also that's when the migraines started. That's why he has the chronic pain that we touched on in the previous segment. And you know, he's also a big guy, so he's sometimes a bit intimidating. You know, big dude with a cybernetic eye can be a bit scary.
Yeah.
And so that is why he has the traits that he has. And for all these survivors, their backstory will inform their skills and their traits. And it's a really good way for you as a player to pick and choose what sort of skills.
It just makes them unique.
Yeah, it makes them unique, definitely.
What I've always loved while I've been playing as well is because they have got these different approaches and personalities, sort of the stories they end up of their own, where someone does get scared of Connor because he is intimidating, compared to then they'll go off to someone else and be like,
I'm not sure of this guy.
Then there'll be someone else they get along with better, and you've got these different dynamics that end up because of it, which is all fascinating. And you can see again that backstory informs his interest and skill in combat and physical strength.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at Krista to get a little bit of a comparison.
Strong contrast to Connor.
Very strong contrast to Connor, absolutely. Yep. So Krista is a cybersecurity analyst and essentially, as it says in the traits, a genius. So she has had a life as a positive hacker. Things were going well until they didn't.
Yep.
And so then they decided to leave on a ship. And unfortunately, that ship had an emergency stop on Sobrius. But as we can see here, spending a lifetime being a positive hacker has left them being incredibly smart, and they're a genius, which informs that intelligence stat being at a 7, which is really, really high. So you've got someone immediately who's going to be great at those observations, at that research, and really driving forward the innovation for your group of survivors. However, they're also pretty self-aware. They're kind of clumsy.
Yep.
And as a result, they don't want to be handling these sort of delicate things where you're actually constructing something and crafting something. Well, specifically crafting. So they're not going to be helping out with building, like, you know, delicate things like weaponry and helping with building out things like making clothes for people, because it's just not what they're good at. So quite frankly, it says they're incapable because they just refuse.
Yeah,
they will not do those tasks. And that's totally fine because they contribute something else fantastic as well. And I think Krista gives us a great example that you've got relationships to consider.
Absolutely, yeah.
So while the survivors, they have unique backstories, they've got different skill set mixes, and they've got different traits, you've also got different relationships. So you can see Krista here is sisters with both Katina and Paulette. And I think we can have a very quick look at Grayson, off the top of my head.
Yes.
Grayson, who's the husband of Vanessa. So you've got different family ties, and you've also got people who are in relationships. So you've always got these things to consider. You can either consider that in who you bring with you. So I think one person is somebody's mum who's in the mix as well.
At least 2 mothers somewhere in
yes,
this.
I think it might be Vivian. There you go. So you've got Vivian there. So if you can imagine that you crash on an alien planet, but with your mum, that's got like huge benefits to it because you've got someone that you know from your life who you love very much. But also, you know, maybe you're going to have some clashes there if you've not seen them in a little while. It depends on the relationship. So you've got all these different things to consider. And siblings, they don't always get along, but sometimes they do. So it's always fascinating to see what happens and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that they've been placed together. We could have a look at 1 or 2 more survivors, I think.
Yeah, Naris here is a former miner who at one point experienced an altered state of consciousness, which then gives him the liberated trait. He can't experience meltdowns or euphoria. Meltdowns being when their mental health gets so low that they just go wild, essentially.
Things aren't great.
Yeah, things
they
aren't
start
great.
acting out
They
in
start
like
acting out,
horrible
yeah,
ways.
They might eat all the food. They might just refuse to work. They'll do different things depending on the situation. So he will not have these experiences. But he's also a pacifist because of his enlightenment, and therefore is fully incapable of doing any sort of combat. But he has an interest in healing, which will let him level up healing a lot faster than other survivors might. And, you know, he has a decent level of physical, and like his other skills are of a decent level that can then be leveled up further. And he can help out with other things around the base. For example, he can help out with farming, with crafting, with cooking, with
with all of it except for the combat, because as you mentioned, based on his backstory, he simply will not, because it is just not something that he agrees with anymore.
Yeah.
So we've got one more that we'll have a quick look at there is Samantha. So we've got Samantha trained as an astrophysicist and engineer in the Terran Defense Fleet, so you can immediately see that reflection in both the traits and the skills. Really good at combat straight off the bat, really smart straight off the bat, and super interested in construction. While naturally, in those roles, you wouldn't have had much time to do construction. Clearly, she spent some time learning about it, and that interest is reflected in the traits as well.
Yep.
So you'll have Samantha learning very quickly and building very quickly, which makes her a fantastic member of the team here.
For sure.
But you've also got to consider she's a vegetarian. So what do you do with the food when it comes to winter? If your crops aren't growing, you need to make sure you've got that all stocked up, for example. So that's given us a good example of 4 of the survivors who are all completely different.
Definitely.
I think now I'd like to go back to our 4 survivors. We left them with their little base that they'd built.
Yep.
Should we see what's happened over time, see
Yeah,
how
let's
they've
do
getting
it.
on? Let's go have a look. We are with the survivors who have progressed quite a bit.
Time has definitely progressed.
Time has definitely progressed. They're not sitting in a shelter of sticks anymore, I can tell you that
they're not.
much.
They've got a nice brick, big house.
With a roof, proper roof and everything.
Roof. And it's winter as well. Like we're several days in now. Several weeks, a month.
Well, months. Yeah.
Seasons.
Seasons. Time. What a concept. So, as you can see, we've got a lot to talk about. They have significantly improved what they've got going on here. To give everyone a bit of a headline, we've got things like expeditions, we've got farming, we've got electricity, we've got functional houses with heating as well, and we've got defenses. We've got a lot to talk about. So I think let's start with the defenses. As you can see on the right, there is a certain large group of aggressive animals going to be heading our way very soon. But luckily, we're prepared.
We are pretty good, pretty well set up.
We've got a good setup. We've got a pretty big base running, and we're prepared. We want to keep it that way. We want to keep it nice. We want to keep it undamaged. So we've built this incredible defense system.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I said it would be interesting to have a survivor group with 0 combat skill, because you can automate a lot of the combat and defenses.
That's right.
In the game, if you want to. So right now, what we've done is we have built big fences around the entire base to shield ourselves from anything that might come to want to attack us. And what we've done is we've had one single gate that we've opened up, because we know that whenever anything comes to attack, they will try to flock to any open point within those defenses. So they will rush automatically towards this specific gate. And what we've done is that in front of that gate, we've set up several turrets that will immediately start firing whenever anything comes within their range. And in front of the turrets, we also have all these traps, which will stop anything that steps on them. They're bear traps, basically. They will shut, and anything that is caught by them will be immediately disabled for a while. They won't be able to walk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this shows one of the key ways you can defend your survivors and the base that you build through essentially automation of your defenses.
Yes.
So all of this, as Jens mentioned, is ready to go. And as stuff arrives, you'll be able to see what happens with it. But we also have another key way to defend.
Yes.
And that is, of course, the survivors themselves. So when the survivors have got weaponry equipped, and I guess if they don't, they'll just try to punch.
They will try to punch.
It's not the smartest way to do it, but I guess they could. But we've given them weapons
There's
in this
some
situation.
pretty decent hardware here, I'd say.
They're good to go, I reckon.
Yeah.
So you can also take an approach that's a little bit more direct. So we've got this sort of automation route, but you've also got what we call drafting. So when you click on draft, you'll immediately be able to see all your survivors have got these different circles around them, and that shows their range and what they're able to do. And when you've drafted someone, you take direct control. So they'll stand still, essentially, until you tell them, move here, and you do that in a very sort of RTS style.
They'll immediately stop what they're doing.
Exactly.
And just be like, all right, I'm ready to do whatever order you give me.
And so you can move them over. So before we unpause, because we know that we'll have this animal attack soon, we'll be able to order each of them into these handy-dandy towers that we've built. So they've all got ranged weapons, so we can do them one at a time and give them the command to go into these different towers. So as you can see, Mitch is doing that right now. You can see what they're going to do. We've got the game playing, so you can see them getting ready, running over. And they will be ready for the inevitable animal attack.
Yeah. Just as they're getting ready, the animal attack is starting.
And this is going to be a bad day for Connor, because this is a lot of what bit him earlier, a few months ago, as you can see coming down the hill. So if we swing around, we've got a pretty good view of this horde of giant bugs coming in, and immediately there go the turrets, there go the missiles, the survivors are ready on their posts. The snowman is doing its best in the middle of everything.
Poor snowman, just trying his best.
Snowman MVP. And we can immediately see the traps trapping them and holding them still, giving the turrets a chance to shoot, giving the survivors a chance to shoot. A couple of them seem to be making it through.
Oh, yeah, we've got some.
We've got the flamethrowers have now started going from the back of the base. We've got more rockets firing off all over the place. Lara has increased in their skill for combat after all of this. And it looks like, yes, it looks like we've won.
That was incredibly quick. That was incredibly quick.
They did a
combat
lot
encounter.
of damage there, yeah.
Definitely helped with all those turrets. And then, yeah, as you saw, the few bugs that were able to get inside were either immediately shot down by the survivors, or they were caught in these traps and then just burned to a crisp by the flamethrowers that we've set up inside here.
Absolutely.
So I would definitely call this a successful,
that was a successful
defensive
defense
operation.
And you can see that the way we approached this was having a multi-layered defense ready to go. And now that we've finished the combat, we've undrafted all of the survivors. So they'll go back to doing what they like to do best.
Yes.
Or what they've been tasked with on the schedule or the activities. They'll just crack on with what they're supposed to be doing and resetting all of the traps. So they'll get ready for just in case if there is another altercation, shall we call it. And you can also now set them up to do other tasks. You've got, for example, if you want to butcher all of them for the insects for their meat, that's something that you can do.
There are 30, there's a bunch of bloated, overgrown insects.
And I think we've got the other insects as well. There's another 70 plus.
Yeah, all of these can be butchered for the meat, and then that can be cooked up into a nice meat soup or something a bit more exotic.
I'm sure we could find something. I feel like it's not going to be the tastiest, but if they're stuck for food, it arrived at their door. I guess it's like don't look a gift horse in the mouth kind of situation.
But as you can see, we've progressed a fair bit when it comes to cooking as well, so there's more recipes.
There's a lot to go through. So for our defenses, we've got turrets now.
We've got turrets now.
They're pretty impressive turrets that we've got now.
Very, very good turrets.
And as you may have noticed, there are energy lines, electricity poles all over the place. Because we've also progressed in our technology.
Yes, we now have access to electricity and ways to generate that electricity. So all of this is part of the research tech tree. And as you can see here, we've got solar panels, we have wind turbines. I believe there's also to the left here, there should be some diesel engines that will then, these will generate...
Making power on all fronts.
Yeah, these will generate electricity for us, which can then could be stored in batteries and then distributed out to whatever we need it distributed to, whether that be our defenses or various things that are inside this house, for example, the lamps or the freezer that's keeping all our meat fairly well cooked. We've got an electric cook stove. We've got air conditioners in here. There's so many different things.
All the things you could possibly want. So if we go back to have a look at the electricity outside, as you can see, we've got these different methods, and that's going to be up to you as the player to decide, do you want to create fuel or find anything to make fuel so that you can power your electricity that way? Do you want to rely on really sustainable sources such as wind power, such as solar power? Because, of course, whilst those are going to be fantastic during the day, not so great at night. And is the wind blowing? Is it not blowing? That's going to make a difference to your energy production. So you have to make these different choices. Plenty of different routes that you can take. I think we'll leave everyone to explore how they want to make their energy. But one of the critical things that we'd recommend is making sure you've got a couple of batteries set up. So Jens touched on this a moment ago. You can charge these up and you can add power to them. But then that's what's going to save you if you decide to, let's say we decided just to use solar power. We'll charge during the day, and then at night we can keep everything running in the house because we've got that power charged and it can be then taken from that storage. Whereas if we were just using the power as we made it, we'd probably have a pretty rough time at night, I would say.
I do think so, yeah. It would be tricky to do any of this.
So we've gone for an approach where we've got several different kinds of power. We've got generators, we've got wind, we've got solar, and we've got them all stored. And we've even got a lightning rod, so we can both protect things and take that as well.
Yeah, those
so
lightning rods, very handy, because sometimes your survivors might get struck by lightning. I learned that the hard way.
I lost a shelter. Pour one out.
Oh no, yeah, pour one out.
But we've got all of this use for electricity, absolutely. So you touched on the inside the house.
Yes.
The wonderful little house that we've got.
Yeah, there's a lot of things happening here. As you can see, obviously, they've expanded from the shelters that they had previously. This is just one way that you can build in Stranded Alien Dawn. If you wanted to, you could build individual houses for each of your survivors.
Absolutely.
As you can see here, we've got one large house with a
We've gone for a sort of barracks approach.
Yeah, there's a recreation room. Everyone has their different rooms. And we've got like one sort of research and crafting room. We've got a pantry or like storage room. And we've got a nice kitchen.
It's pretty well organized, I'd say,
Very
actually.
well organized.
Yeah.
Absolutely, impeccably well organized. So there are many different ways that you can choose how you build your base, how you expand, how you build houses, build rooms, etc., etc.
I like that we gave them a didgeridoo.
Of course, they
Why
need
not?
they need some musical instruments.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
I think there's also survivors that can play music and
Yes.
then improve the other survivors' lives.
Yeah, it's very cute when they play for each other. And you've got other different things in that recreation. But so the other advantages, aside from this all being very efficient and functional, the huge benefits of having built this brick house over the stick shelter is that they are going to stay warmer now, and any heat production that you make is going to stay put as well. So this is all sort of vital progression for your survivors.
Yes, absolutely.
But I think it's important to talk about how we got to this stage, because we were starting with sticks.
Yes.
And we didn't just sort of find a brick house. We had to.
Wouldn't that be amazing, though?
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
Just I've crashed on Sobrius and I've just happened to find this brick house. Lucky me, lucky me. But not quite so lucky for our survivors. This is all. A lot of hard work's gone into this.
We've made it this way through, as you said, hard work. So,
and there's the research side of that.
Yes, and within the research desk is where we can do all this research. And if you go to your research menu, you'll find that it's split into 5 different categories: research, resources, power, defense, construction, and breakthroughs. And
so here we'll see a split between research that needs to be done and research that we've already done. So this is clearly sort of a much further progressed settlement than we previously saw. So they've got a lot of research done by this point. But if we have a look at the completed research for a moment, you can see that you've got a very big breakdown of all these different parts that they need to figure out how to research. So to do this, you've got observations in the wild, you've got building different things as well, and then certain research leads to even more research as well. So you can have a look at things like learning how electronics work, which moves on to electronics crafting, which leads on to, I think there was CPU creation, so you can make these automated turrets, which we've now seen, and you've got all of these different parts of power cells, etc. Looking after your house is in there, all these different ways to create resources on the left, so you can create the antibiotics production, oil extraction, pickling.
Yeah,
it's one of the more important ones in my opinion. Love that. Love that for them. But so we've also got the continuation of this where we've got this brick house,
Yes.
and they've researched to be able to build this brick house, and they can continue to research for different materials so they can continue building in different ways, and then these different materials will provide different benefits for them based on what they need, essentially. So that's all super useful stuff that you get through that research, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. And there's the research tree in itself is very sort of open and free form. You can choose what you want to research when, essentially, and there's no really set path for you to take. You can basically go for whatever you want when you want. And so some might start off immediately researching improved housing, for
So
example.
let's have a look at the research panel again, so we can look at the completed research and we can talk about a bit of that. So as you mentioned, there's things like construction basics.
Yes.
Or do you want to have a look at the things like fuel mixing or pickling because you want to make your food last longer? Do you want to go straight into weaponsmithing because you've got a particularly dangerous drop zone and you need to defend yourself? Or are you in a space where maybe it's going to be better for you to look directly at power? Here's Katina giving us some information. Thank you very much. But you've got all of these different types of research, and as you mentioned, it's really up to you which one you prioritize. And I think the situation, but also your survivors, is going to help you make those decisions, right?
And also depending on what sort of resources you have around you, for example, like if you have a lot of, let's say you have a lot of stone, maybe you want to try to use that right away in something. If you have a lot of wood, for example, maybe going for construction basics and then building up a big wooden house would be a good thing for you. It all
I
depends
like building that wooden house. It's like building those cabins that you have up in the woods.
Yes,
it's really nice.
It's very cute. And so it all depends on who you are as a player. It depends on what your survivors can do. It depends on what your resources around you are. So it's, but it's all very free form and all very, you can go for what you want, essentially.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about the balloon.
It's a very nice balloon.
It is, right, thank you. I made it myself. So we've got this balloon, which is part of the expeditions. So this is one of the pieces of research you can do is for long expeditions. And as we pan around looking at Cerberus from this viewpoint, you can see there's explore, there's a call source. I think there was another one over to the left.
Tachyon thing over there, which I think is what
yes, the
Katina
tachyon
discovered
source that was
earlier.
discovered.
Yep.
So let's go with the explore for now. Let's pop that one over. So when you pick this, you can send one of your survivors out in the balloon, and they'll be able to explore much further afield. As we mentioned, it's quite, I mean, it's a planet.
It is a big planet.
While you can do a lot on foot, you'll sometimes need to get a little bit more of a transportation. So by selecting one of your survivors and sending them on this expedition, they can often come up with events. They'll come back with potentially more resources or other surprises for you. Or if there was danger, maybe they won't come back at all. Risk and rewards. You've got to find out. Maybe they'll just come back hurt, like a little bit bruised, but you have to find out by sending them. So I'm sure now that we've sent Lara out on expedition, we'll see whether she comes up with anything while we.
There might be a pop-up saying, "Hey, I found this thing. What should I do?
What should I do?"
And then you can tell them, "Oh no, bring back what you can, and then come back, or you can explore some more."
We'll have to see what the options are, but we'll see if they find anything. Maybe they find nothing while they're out there as well.
Never know.
So we've sent Lara off. Lara goes off in the balloon.
Bye.
See you, Lara. Have a good trip. Send us a postcard. But we've got to look after our survivors still back at the base.
Yes.
And one of the critical parts, which it is winter, so food is always, of course, something to consider. And luckily, as we saw earlier, they'd already built some farms.
Yes.
But let's talk about those a little bit more.
Yeah, so as you do the observations of the local flora, as it were, you will then learn how to, plant them in your bases, and you will essentially just do that through the farms menu, which you can find at the bottom there. So in this particular playthrough, they have found beef berries, they've found grain cobs, buttermelons, fruit bushes, skin bark. Skin bark is what you see at the back there. And by planting these will grow automatically. But assigning your survivors to do harvesting or farming will allow them to harvest and then regrow anything that needs to be regrown after it's been harvested. And then you put them in with the rest of your resources, and you can then use it to make various things. Like, for example, skin bark can be made into vegetable leather.
Veggie leather.
Yeah. And there's also a way to make a type of cotton as it were, on this planet as well. And then that can again be made into new clothing, into defensive armors, for example, things like that.
We've also got all of the food there, like the buttermelons and I think they're called the beef berries, I want to say.
Yes.
Really? Something like that.
Nice.
There they are.
Yeah.
Beef berries. Yeah, got it right. See, I know my Sobrian flora. I'd pass that test any day. So they've obviously stockpiled quite a bit of food ready for the winter here, but a huge part of being able to do that was not scavenging. It was absolutely through farming.
Yes.
So these farms have been a pivotal part in surviving the winter for our Intrepid group. And when it comes through to next season, it's going to be once more. It's going to be a big deal again, I would say.
Yeah, this is just gonna keep growing automatically. Obviously, it's growing at a slower rate now that it's winter.
Of course.
But when spring comes around again, it's gonna go back to the sort of regular cadence of growth as it did previously. And you can, yeah, as we said.
Speaking of our expeditions, Lara has detected the ship's data storage sensors. So let's send them there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's send them there. We'll see what happens with them next.
See what we can find. Expedition
Absolutely.
complete, data core. There we go.
So that data core gives us benefits, unlocks one new breakthrough for research.
Fantastic.
So brilliant. So
Yeah.
this was a well worth it expedition for us.
Well worth it expedition.
No one got hurt. We only gained benefits.
Improved railgun snipers. I like it.
All right. That's quite incredible. Well, we'll leave that research for the moment.
Yes.
As I think we've got something quite important we've touched on quite a few times.
Yes.
You mentioned veggie leather. So let's have a look at crafting, shall we?
Yes.
We're in winter after all. We need new clothes
We do need
for
new
our
clothes.
survivors. They need to have something warm. So why don't we have a look at the crafting?
Yeah, so as you progress down the research tree, you will unlock new things that you can craft, and you will do that through the various crafting benches. So there's the tailor bench. There's also just, I think it's just called crafting. Workbench. Thank you very much. And then you will use these to craft new resources and then turn those resources into new weapons or clothing or armor or anything else you might need. So right now, because it's winter, obviously, we would need some warmer clothing. And so things like fur coats, fur hats, maybe fur-lined boots would be a good option to create for your survivors.
Absolutely.
And, some of these resources you can build on these workbenches can then also be used to make other things around your base, like for example the freezers, the new research bench that we have here, the various bits and bobs that you need for electronic things. So yeah, there's a lot to dig into. There's
a lot going
manage.
on there.
Yeah.
And with these, once it's all queued up, like you said, they'll get cracking,
Yes.
and that's exactly what Kana is doing right now. I believe Kana's working on a t-shirt. So
And some thermal pants are on the way as well, which is
Exactly.
very good. And then you can also
Change the priorities
Change the
here.
priority of these. You can also tell them if you want to make something X amounts of times, or until you have a certain amount of said thing, or if you just wanted to keep making it forever.
forever.
Yeah.
All the t-shirts,
Yeah.
all the time. We need t-shirts for every single day, Kana.
Yes.
But you have, of course, every day a new t-shirt.
Every day
Thank
a
you,
new
Kana. But you've, of course, got quite a lot of control over how they produce things. For me, when I've got them producing food, that's where I tend to set a work order for create up to this
Yes.
many of a dish.
Yeah.
Because then once it runs out, they'll make even more of it until there's a certain amount of portions ready,
Yep.
which for me has always worked out really nicely. And then equally, I don't actually want them to build me 500 plus
No.
t-shirts.
Yeah.
So I usually make exactly 4 t-shirts, please.
Yes.
And exactly 4 sets of boots so that they don't sit there making boots forever.
Yeah.
Like a very poor cobbler. So I think that gives us quite a lot of the game
Absolutely.
basics. And I feel like we've still only scratched the surface.
There is much more for us to do.
There's a lot more for us to
There's
talk
more
about
we can
here.
do for, like, we can make houses of new materials. We can go on more expeditions. There's more research we can do.
So much more to be seen.
Different kinds of weapons,
different kinds of
armor,
fauna and
clothing.
flora to have a
Yes.
look at as well.
Everything.
But I think that's really all we've got time for today.
I do think so, yes.
Thank you so much to everyone for joining us today for our first stream of Stranded Alien Dawn. I had a wonderful time. How about you?
This has been so much fun. I'm very happy to be able to show the game to everyone out there.
Absolutely. And I'm actually even more excited for everyone else to get their hands on the game when it comes out in early access. So you will be able to play for yourself on October 12th. and that will be early access on Steam. So if you head over to Steam right now, you can wishlist and be ready for when the game's available. And otherwise, if you want to keep up with us, you can find us over on our socials, right?
Yes, you can find us on Twitter @StrandedGame and on Facebook and Instagram @StrandedAlienDawn. Don't forget to also join us over on our Discord server.
Fantastic. And that is all we have time for. So we will see you on October 12th, and bye for now.